Hi, this is voice of the St. Joseph Sports Network, Matt Martucci, and you're listening to Sports and Rants on Radio 1851.
And we are back. This is Sports and Rants with Brett and Pants. I'm your host, Brett Suto, along with my co-host, Glenn Pantalone. And we are on live with former Anaheim Angel, Los Angeles Angels player, Robb Quinlan. Robb, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Not a problem.
So, Robb, have you been keeping up with the baseball season so far?
Yeah, I am. I wish obviously I had some more time to watch some games, but get a chance to go living here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I get a chance to check out a few Twins games, and actually the Angels, my former team, is in town playing the Twins, and I'm actually going to go down to the game tonight and check it out.
Yeah, that's a big wild card battle right now. The Twins and Angels are both trying to fight their way into the wild card after the Angels have struggled a little bit of late. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's a big series. I know the Angels took the first of the 4-game series last night. You know what? Both those teams, obviously, Angels were my team that I got to play for, so they're my number one team. And just being from Minnesota, the Twins are my second favorite team. And really, it's almost like you need one of the two teams to almost sweep the other team here this weekend. And like I said, the Angels got the first game here, but it's one of those things. If they split the series, no one's gaining any ground, and both teams might not make it then. So I'm hoping one of them has a good series and a good finish to the year, and one of the teams can sneak in.
So are you rooting for one team over the other?
Yeah, it's funny. No, just I just go down there and enjoy it. One of my good buddies is Jared Weaver, obviously is with the Angels, and another good buddy is Kevin Jepson, who's with the Twins now, and so I'm not pulling one way or the other. Just hoping my buddies do good when they play, and just go down there with some family and friends and enjoy the game.
Now, do you think we're going to be seeing one of these teams in October?
Yeah, I think they got a chance. I know Houston's been struggling here quite a bit now, and I definitely think with the schedules those guys have, I think one of the teams has a chance of sneaking in there.
Now, is there any? You mentioned that you still are good friends with Weaver. Is there any guys that you still love watching play on any team?
You know what? Obviously, just being a former player, still have some buddies that play, as far as Jared Weaver, John Lackey, Mike Napoli, Kevin Jepson. So I like watching those guys. I'm just an overall fan of baseball, and obviously Mike Trout, and it's pretty fun to watch. It seems like he's always putting up a highlight reel every night. He's definitely fun to watch, and obviously Bryce Harper's having a pretty good year here this year too. So just so many good young players with the Twins. Sano and Buxton, and Sano's obviously, since he's been up this year, has been fun to watch, and he's having a good year. And so it's obviously good to see, for the Twins, that they have a bright future coming up with some good young players.
Now, you mentioned all these young guys. It seems that baseball has changed since the early 2000s, since you were playing that. Now we're moving more towards these 18, 19-year-old kids coming up and playing. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think it could be detrimental later in their careers, or?
No, I think that, it's a question people have asked me before, and old school baseball, I think it was you go into the minor leagues and you put your time in, and there's definitely times when I was in the minor leagues where if it was me or somebody else, you're kind of like, when are they going to move this person up? How much can they do at one level before you move them? And I just think now with the training and that kids get growing up, their lifting, their health, everything, just so much more improved than what it was for everybody 20 years ago, or maybe even 10, 15 years ago. These guys are ready younger. They're ready to get up there. They're ready to they've proven, obviously usually only in a short time period that they can produce at the minor leagues, and they're ready physically to get up to the major leagues and play. So I don't think this is going to hurt any of those guys long term. I think it's great for the game, and these guys are fun to watch. They're fast, they're quick. They put on a good show, and ultimately that's what it is. It's a big show, and you want to put on a good show for your fans and draw people into the ballpark and sell merchandise. And if these kids can do it, why not give them a chance?
Now, you mentioned it. These guys have training all year round. They're playing all year round. You grew up in Minnesota. Obviously, the weather isn't conducive to play baseball all year round. Did you play other sports growing up? And do you think playing baseball all year round is good for a player?
It's obviously in Minnesota here. It's winter's not just right around the corner up here. But, I played football in the fall. I played hockey in the winter. Once the end of the summer hit, I didn't pick up a glove or a bat until springtime. And, I think it's detrimental to any sport or any kid that just focuses strictly on, one sport. Even the guys that, I get that it's easy to be focused on one thing, but I think you get to see a lot of kids that get burnt out on doing it. And ultimately, look at any of the sports, the major sports. Most of your superstars, all those guys played multiple sports growing up. They were, the star of the football team and the star of the baseball team or the hockey team or basketball, whatever it is. And those guys played everything. So I don't personally agree with people that focus on one sport. I think a lot of times it's the parents doing it more so than the kids. And but I like it when kids can get out and play different sports. And I loved it up in Minnesota, having the different seasons, playing football, playing hockey in the wintertime, and then just focusing on those sports when it was time to play. I think I had so much more fun just doing that than really focusing on one sport.
Now, growing up, did you ever think that you would be able to play Major League Baseball one day? Was that ever in the back of your mind?
Yeah, it definitely was. I was fortunate I had two older brothers, and actually one of my brothers was on the 1992 Toronto Blue Jays World Series team. My brother Tom, I think he was about 23 years old at the time, and he had played professionally up and down AAA to the big leagues for many of years. Went over to overseas and played over in Korea for a while. So I definitely knew that there was a chance for me to play. Now at the same time, the odds of anybody making it are really slim. Not only do you got to be good enough, also you got to be the right place, the right time, stay healthy. So I was always striving to go as far as I could in any sports, but at the same time, I did actually enjoy school and wanted to make sure I went to the University of Minnesota, made sure I got my degree, and set myself up for other options if I never had an opportunity to play professionally.
Now, you mentioned that your brother played baseball as well. Do you think that helped push you, helped get your name out there more and get more attention to you?
Yeah, I definitely think at times it definitely helps. I think that it's easier if you're going to watch a game or if there's scouts or coaches or wherever. I get it. I understand. His older brother plays professionally. So yeah, I think it definitely helps at times. It never hurt me. Gave me probably more exposure and more opportunities sometime. But ultimately, it comes down to one thing. Can you play or can you not play? And that's really what's going to take people to the next level.
Now, you were drafted originally out of high school, and then you chose to go on to college instead. What factored into that decision?
You know what? It's kind of one of those things that my older brother, he signed actually out of high school, and he had a great career, but it was up and down between the majors and AAA for a lot of years, and I really thought that I had that mindset that I kind of wanted to go to college physically. I was a 6'1", 160-pound kid. I just knew physically I needed to get bigger and get stronger. And so I wanted to go to college, get my degree. And if I had an opportunity and, at the end of college to go on, I definitely wanted to have that opportunity. So I thought everything I put into the work to that point, I just knew it physically. I just was probably the biggest thing that I knew I wasn't ready to go professionally yet.
Now, we hear a lot about that decision, whether or not to go into the pros or go right into college. What are your thoughts on that? And we're seeing more guys, I think, nowadays going right from high school to the minor leagues. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that you alluded to it, that college education is very important?
Yeah, I think nowadays, it's almost like it. I get that if you have an opportunity out of high school, sometimes kids want to go. Realistically, even if you do sign, the odds of you, making it to the major leagues are pretty slim. So unless you're given a ton of money and you're a top, 2-3 round pick, I can see where those kids want to sign and go on. But if you're not at that point, I think it's just beneficial for yourself to set yourself up long term to go to school, because ultimately, I know that there's, we talk about these young players that are coming up. It seems like a ton of them. Well, realistically, there's only a handful of them. And most of the kids, if you can go to college and you're not going to make it to the majors by the time you're 21, 22. So why not go to college, get your degree, sign professionally if you're given an opportunity then, and then, you can still get up to the big leagues pretty quick at that point.
Now, you had some unbelievable success at Minnesota. Was it the factor that you were comfortable being in your hometown, that you were going to college near home? Did that factor into your success?
Yeah, I think I felt comfortable there. I think, baseball, obviously, it's a game of a lot of individual battles, but realistically, it is a team game, and I had great teammates. We had fun guys. We had guys that we enjoyed. Part of it was we enjoyed going to practice and practicing hard and trying to get better. And I mean, a lot of that's where you become a better baseball player. Is your practice time, the stuff going to the gym, working out. It was a great fit for me, for my teammates. We had some good teams. We had a lot of players that had really good careers, and it was just we just all fed off of each other. And I think that's part of the reason why I did have so much success in college.
Now, did a coach reach out to you when you were at Minnesota while you were playing there, telling you that you had the potential to make it to the big leagues?
Did a scout, did you say?
Scout or a coach reach out to you?
No, I mean, it was just one of those things where, obviously there's scouts around and obviously you hear chatter and whatnot, but, realistically, like I said before, it comes down to one thing. They can tell you how good you are or how not good you are, but it's all about you going out there and playing, and that's really the only thing you can control is what you do on the field, and you can't control if some team's going to take you in the first round or the 20th round, or, they're going to make those decisions on your own. All you can really do is go out there and play hard. So, yeah, there's definitely with scouts around, I'm talking and saying things, but, like I said, the team I was with, the guys, we just focus on playing baseball and let that other stuff take care of itself.
Now, after college, you were obviously drafted again by the Angels. What was that like, being drafted and leaving home for the first time, leaving the Minnesota area?
Yeah, it's definitely, I was in college and I played in summer league, so I was gone throughout the summer. But it was definitely different, where it wasn't like, all right, this is, if I don't do great this summer, I can come back to college or whatever it may be. It was like, wow, this is actually an opportunity, for a career. It may be short, it may be long, but it was definitely a little bit different leaving home. But I was looking forward to it. I was a senior sign, so I was, just had turned 22 years old, and I was ready to move on, past college at that point. I mean, I had a blast in college, but it was ready to move on and take the next step. So it's always a little frustrating at times. You get in the minor leagues, and I think a lot of people think this is some glamorous life. And, well, realistically, I think my first year I went to short season A-ball in Boise, Idaho, and, they're paying you $850 a month to play baseball, and you got to live off that, and it's tough to do sometimes. But I always told guys that, or even younger kids now, that really you got to just focus on the baseball, because it's pretty easy to look at the negatives of things as far as when you first sign your first few years, what you're making. You're probably living in an apartment that's probably not the best. May not be a great city that you're in, but it's all about what you do at the ballpark, and really try to just take the positives from it and focus on playing baseball and not worry about the negative stuff, because everyone else has got to go through the same stuff too. So you have the choice to look at it positively or negatively, and that's kind of what I always tell kids and told myself when I was playing.
Now, something that we hear a lot about in the minor leagues, and obviously didn't affect you that much, but we see guys that have all this talent, all this upside, but they just can't handle it mentally, the stress of playing every day. Did you see that around you, and did you ever feel that?
Yeah, definitely baseball is one of those games. I mean, if you're succeeding as a hitter 30% of the time, you're a good player. So, you're failing 70% of the time, and that's just the good one. So you definitely have your times when things aren't going your way, you're struggling, you're hitting balls right at people maybe and just not getting hit. So it's definitely a mental game more than anything. And you really, like I said, you really got to try to stay positive and do the little things to get better. One thing I always kind of said, when things weren't going good, I wanted to make my 0 for 4s 0 for 2s. So if there was a way to get a sac fly or bunt a runner over for a sacrifice or take walks or whatever it was, to really limit those days, instead of going 0 for 2s, you're really only 0 or really 0 for 2 instead of 0 for 4s. That adds up throughout the season. So it's definitely a mental game. Every day it's a battle. So I definitely saw guys that got frustrated. You still see it now in a lot of sports. Guys get frustrated. They punch a wall. You break your hand. Next thing you know, you're out for 2 months or whatever it is. So you really got to try to keep staying positive and really put everything that has already happened behind you and really just focus on your next at bat or your next pitch or whatever it may be.
One thing we like to ask former baseball players on our show is what their path was like to the major leagues. We hear some guys struggle, some guys hit that wall at some points and just can't take it and then eventually make it to the major leagues. What was your path like, and did you ever feel like maybe this was too easy for you to get there?
I wish it was too easy for me to get there. I wish that was the problem. No, I was fortunate. I did have really good years throughout the minors. I would say the first time I really felt like it was a grind as far as how long the schedule was my first full season of baseball. I played in Lake Elsinore, California, in the California League. And, all of a sudden you're in spring training beginning of March, and you practice for all of March, and then the season starts beginning of April. And before you know it, you're 120 games in, and I'm not used to playing this many baseball games. And I really remember probably about beginning of July, that season is where it really hit me. And I think I struggled a little bit in that month, and I really just refocused on my health and taking care of my body, and I felt really beat down, and I ended up finishing the season really good, had a great August, but I really remember that was the first time, like, wow, this is a lot of baseball.
Now, you eventually would make your major league debut with the Angels. Could you take us back into that moment, what you were thinking, what the nerves were like?
Yeah, it was, I can even take you back a little bit further, we were playing, when I was in AAA with Salt Lake City, we were playing in Tacoma, Washington against the Tacoma team, and I actually was not even playing that day. I had a day off, and I remember the manager, the trainer actually, who is actually from Minnesota, who still is a good friend of mine. He's a head trainer for the Angels now. All the trainers would carry their phones on them, and the phone rings, and he goes and answers it, and usually that means somebody's getting moved up or traded or something's going on, and he hands the phone to the manager, and the manager's talking, and the manager just kind of came down by me. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to the big league tomorrow." And I was just like, it was like awesome. Like, I couldn't believe it. And you work your whole life to get to that point, and all of a sudden, just like that, it happened. And so it was an awesome feeling. I remember calling my parents, right after the game, and it was just it was really cool. And the next day, you get on a plane, and I'm flying to California and to Anaheim. And I remember I had a pretty memorable first about 10 games. The first day we faced Oakland, and Barry Zito was pitching, who was pretty darn good. And I'll never forget, he had that big curveball, and it was my first at bat, and I think it was like a 1-1 count, and he threw that curveball, and I just remember it starting off so high, and I just gave up on it, thinking there's no way that thing's going to come down. And sure enough, the spin he had on that thing just dropped right in there, strike two, and I was like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, welcome to the major leagues. It is a little bit different here, and ended up having no hits. My first game was 0 for 3 against him, and then the next day the Yankees came into town and got to face Andy Pettit my second day. ended up getting 3 hits off of him my second day, and then faced David Wells, who was obviously very good. Didn't get any hits off him, and then my fourth day in the major leagues faced Roger Clemens, and I got another 2 hits off of him that day. So pretty cool start to my career to, face some of the best players and pitchers in baseball. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. During the time you played in the AL, some of the best pitchers of the last 20 or 30 years were playing. What was it like facing these guys all the time, such as Clemens, Pettit, Zito was there, Mulder, all these guys that were at the top of their game during the time?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean that's what, your buddies want to ask you, after the games. They want you. I mean, those are the guys you want to face. You want to see how good they are. And guys that I had just mentioned was it was an honor to get to play against them. Pedro Martinez was another guy. Got to face, within the first 2 weeks of playing, and just really cool just to play against those guys and to see the stuff that they had. And Pedro, I mean, he's not a very big guy. I mean, he's he's maybe 6 feet and 165 pounds out there, and he doesn't look like a whole heck of a lot. But tell you what, once he starts, gets that arm going, he's got a lot on that ball. He had 4 great pitches, and it's just really fun to just face those guys and, just to compete against them and see what you can do against them. So it was an honor to get to do a lot of that and just to get the chance to meet some of those guys. I know later in his career, I went up to Andy Pettit when he was with Houston at the time and just asked if he'd sign a ball for me, and I introduced myself and, told him, that I got my first major league hit off of him. And, he was a super nice guy. He's like, oh, I remember that. And I don't know if he remembered it or not, but, it was just like, he was really personable, and that's what you want to see. You're in between the lines, you're playing hard against these guys, but at the same time, we're all in it together. And so it's nice when you can get a chance to go up to guys, and a guy like Joe Mauer, I'm from Minnesota. What does all the kids want? All my family, all my nephews, nieces, Joe Mauer balls. And so, I called Joe and, hey, when we're playing against him, Joe, do you mind signing a dozen balls? Oh, no problem, Rob, no problem. I understand, I get it. So it's really cool to see guys that are just nice, people in general, and are, just helping each other out and doing stuff for the kids. That's what it's about, is, having the kids come to the park and watching you play and putting on a show for them.
Now, you mentioned all these great pitchers. Who was the toughest guy you had to face during your career that you just dreaded going up against?
You know what? People always ask me that question too. And I would never say that there was like a guy, and maybe I just didn't get enough at bats over a period of time against multiple people, but there was never really a guy that really stood out. I would say what stood out for me is I always had a little bit more trouble with the hard throwing pitchers. So a lot of times the relievers would come in for an inning, and they're throwing 97 to 99 or whatever it may be. It just felt like sometimes I had a little bit of trouble of catching up with some of those pitches. But there's times when you kind of, I always say sometimes you got to cheat a little bit on those fastballs and get your swing going a little bit early and be ready to hit it. But I would say it was just more in general, those pitches I maybe struggled with a little bit more.
Now, something we like to ask athletes on our show, especially baseball players, is the whole concept of PEDs in the sport and what your thoughts are on that and your experiences with that.
Yeah, when I was coming up, drafted in '99, played in the minors in the early 2000s. I mean, it was definitely I knew people that were taking PEDs, taking steroids, and I just not one of those people. I've had it offered to me before. I've never done them, never wanted to do them. Just didn't feel like it was right. And with that being said, I just didn't feel it was right when you saw other guys that were getting promoted or moving on up, and you just knew that they were on something. So I'm a big fan against them. I just think it's just cheating all around. I love that they're trying to make it stricter and do more drug testing and making sure guys are off of stuff. And it's just the fact that baseball, for a time period there maybe wasn't scoring as many runs and doing some of the things that they were in the past. And I know I get it. People want to see home runs and doing that, but sometimes baseball needs to adjust too. Then maybe move the fences in a little bit, and it seems like the power surges have started to come back here a little bit over the last few years. But I'm just a big person of just doing things the right way and staying off any type of PEDs.
Now, going off that, you said you were basically morally against it, but at moments in your career, of course, everybody struggles, and you see these guys having success day after day around you, maybe taking PEDs or other substances. Did you ever just have, can't take it anymore mentally? Did you ever have those moments where you just thought, these guys are cheating?
Yeah, you know what? The only time, obviously I'm not going to mention names of people, but the only time it was ever offered to me, I'd been in AAA, and it was one of those things that I was just like, I can't, when am I going to get my opportunity to get called up? I was having a good year, and then I kind of had gone into a little bit of a slump for a few weeks, and just happened to be a guy had offered me some stuff, and I just was morally against it. Didn't think it was, I was kind of taken back that he'd even asked me. The guy kind of knew me a little bit, and it was just one of those things. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, and I don't know if it helped or it's just my moral thoughts or whatever, but that night I ended up going out hitting 2 home runs in the game, and it just really solidified, like, no, I can do this on my own. I don't need to do anything to put anything in my body or cheat. And you know what, at the end of the day, if I don't make it to the big leagues, you know what, I know I did things the right way. I did things the best I could, and I can move on from there knowing that.
Why do you think, in your opinion, that we see athletes so adamantly against PEDs, and then we see these guys that are so willing to use them? Yeah,
I just think it's just people's, values and their morals and everything. And it's just like anything in life. Why do you choose to do things right? Why do you choose other people? Why do people try to do things wrong or break the laws or whatever? So you're always going to have that stuff. I don't think that's ever going to change. But, like I said, at the end of the day, I think you got to be happy with yourself and how your thoughts are about things and what makes you happy. And I mean, the flip side of it, I can see why people, if someone told you, hey, guess what, you're going to get, the money that they're paying out now, hey, you're going to get $50 million over the next 10 years if you take this. Well, there's a lot of people just in the general public, whatever job it may be, to break that. There's people that are going to do that. So I don't think it's right, but I also get why people are very tempted by it.
Can you just tell our listeners about the difficulty it is to play baseball every day, just the mental strain on yourself that you might go 0 for 4 one day, especially in the major leagues, not knowing if tomorrow might be your last day up with the Angels or something like that?
Yep. Yeah, I definitely, there's times that, I was kind of more of a utility player, and I think that's probably one of the most stressful jobs, because when you're playing every day, you're going to go through your slumps, but guess what? You're probably going to be back out there the next day and get another chance. And for me, sometimes it was like, oh no, I just went 0 for 4, and I'm like thinking, geez, I might not play for another week now. And so that's definitely the times when I really just had to kind of refocus almost, because it is frustrating when you go 0 for 4. You want to be able to go out there the next day and show them that you can do it. And for me, sometimes it wasn't for a couple more days. So the mental grind of baseball, starting pitchers, non-starting pitchers, whatever it may be, hitters. I mean, every day you got to go out there and guess what? Someone's on the other side trying to kick your butt in, and it's either you're going to let them or you're going to try to fight back. And it's a battle every day, and everyone obviously has that competitive nature to do the best they can. But it's almost like it doesn't stop. It's almost like not a normal job where maybe you go to work and maybe there's a couple of days where you have a few big days, but then the weekend comes and you got some time off. And with baseball, it's every day. For about 6-7 months straight, you got to be ready to go.
Now, you played in Los Angeles your whole career. Could you just talk about just the culture of baseball there? We all know that baseball isn't the biggest thing in LA because there's so much to do, but especially with the Angels rather than the Dodgers, what's it like there, and what was your feelings going to Los Angeles to play there?
Yeah, it's funny. Most people, obviously, the Los Angeles Angels, they think you play in downtown LA. Well, actually, we're in Anaheim, which is about 25 miles south of downtown LA, which is just a completely different feeling than being in LA. The fans are great fans. I'd say maybe a little bit more rowdier, maybe a little bit more into the game, but needless to say, they are good fans. And for the Dodgers and for the Angels, it's just we had great fans, but they're a lot more laid back, a lot more family, a lot more, show up in the second or third inning and leave in the eighth or ninth inning, and more of a family event. I mean, Angel Stadium is right down the road from Disneyland out there, and it's almost like a big Disneyland park. And so it's definitely different. The fans, the culture out there. Obviously, when it just comes to the baseball part of it, I mean, the culture is, they want it to win. When I was out there, Artie Moreno became the new owner of the team, and he was still the owner of the team, and he wants to win. And he's a great owner. He'd do anything for any of his players, his staff, and everything. But at the end of the day, he wants to put a winning team out there. He wants to fill the seats. He wants to put on a good show for the fans. And so when it came to the baseball part of it, Mike Kosha, still the manager out there, I think does a great job. He's had a great career as a manager. He was a great ball player when he played. But he made it a fun setting. I mean, there's definitely, it's a lot of competitive, it's a lot of hard work, but there's times when you got to have some fun too. And I think Sosha did a great job of, when it's time to have some fun, hey, let's have some fun. But also, you got to realize too that you can joke around with them 1 minute, but when it's time to go, I mean, he made it pretty clear who the boss was, and things had to be done because he wanted to win. He wanted to keep his job, and ultimately, he probably one of the biggest reasons I think he's still managing is he really does care about his players on the field, off the field, and he's really done a great job out there.
Now, you mentioned all the families in Anaheim coming to the games. How much fun is it for a ball player to interact with the little kids, to sign autographs? And did you enjoy that aspect of the game?
Yeah, I really did. And I obviously there's a lot of superstars I played with, and I get it at times that, your job is to play baseball. And, it was great. I remember Vladimir Guerrero, he'd always, half hour before the game, he'd be out there stretching and then signing autographs to the kids. And it's like, I mean, there's times definitely, hey, he couldn't sign, and I'm sure he felt bad, but I think sometimes people looked at him like, well, why can't you take time out to sign for me? And I just always tell fans, hey, if he took time out, he'd be signing here till midnight. He's got to, get ready for a game. But there's definitely, you should be thankful that there is people like that get out there early, sign autographs. And I try to do the same thing. I mean, another guy, David Eckstein, and Tim Salmon, we're very great at getting out there and signing autographs for the kids. And, so I try to do the same thing when I could, as much as I could, especially spring training. There's always some good times to sign autographs, but there's nothing better than seeing a kid's face and getting an autograph, and they're smiling and cheering and all happy. It's a great feeling. And, for me, it was always like, you know what? You should be thankful that they're asking for your autograph, because there will come a day when, they don't want your autograph anymore. They don't know who you are or anything like that. So I try to do as much of it as I could.
Now, can you just tell our listeners what you're doing now after retirement from Major League Baseball?
Yep. So I actually, a couple years ago after I retired, I took about a year off or so, and was just looking at some things to do. I did graduate from college, had my degree, and decided with my college roommate, we went into franchising. And so we own multiple Twin Cities locations. It's called The Joint, the chiropractic place. It's a national franchise. And we own 3 locations up here. We also do some of the work for the corporate offices as far as installing radio systems, phone systems nationwide in all their clinics. So we're doing that. We're growing the brand up here in Minnesota. Keep trying to open more locations up here. We got 7 Twin Cities locations right now, and trying to open some more right now. So keeping me busy, and something. I can say I never thought I'd be doing this, but it's something I love. I remember one of the first times we just opened our 3rd clinic, and the first, just like any business, the first year or so feels like all you're doing is writing checks and paying money in, and I just remember a lady at one of our clinics walking out, and we do convenience, no appointments, walk-in chiropractic care, and just remember a lady walking out, and just she was in so much pain when she came in, and just like the joy on her face when she left, and how much relief we had just given to her. And it was just like, at that moment I was like, at this time I'm doing the right thing. This is making people healthier, making people better. And at that moment I was like, that's great. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm enjoying it. And it's been a great ride ever since. The clinics are doing great, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Now, are you glad that you ended up getting that college degree?
Yep.
And before we let you go, one final question for you, Rob. What's next for you? Do you want to get back into baseball eventually? Do you want to get into coaching? Anything like that?
You know what? I did coach actually at the University of Minnesota. Actually, when I first retired for 1 year, I enjoyed doing it. I was a volunteer coach. They have a great coaching staff up there. At that time, I was hoping there may be a spot to get a full-time job up there, and ended up not being that. And all the coaches got renewed with 5-year contracts, which they all deserve. They do a great job there, and I just kind of didn't want to volunteer anymore. I wanted to kind of move on. But if there was definitely something that opened up again, I enjoy coaching. I think it always makes you feel youthful, being around younger people and sports and everything like that. So if something came out, I would definitely get back into coaching. But like I said, I'm pretty happy in the business world right now and the stuff I'm doing there. So I'm going to keep focusing on that for now.
Well, Rob, thank you for your time. We really appreciated it. We enjoyed talking to you and looking back on your career.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to be on.
This concludes our podcast of Sports and Rants with Brent and Pants. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Twitter at Sports and Rants. Like us on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes and visit our website, www.sportsandrants.blogspot.com. It would help our rankings on iTunes if you rate and review our podcast. Thanks, and have a good day.